How many? How many? How many? How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, what did I get up to?
This drama contains adult language and partial nudity. Viewer discretion is advised.
The Bill of Rights guarantees everyone the right to be heard. Thankfully, it says nothing about their being taken seriously or making much sense.
First of all, you take one deep breath of air, and then you go 100 miles an hour. You know that? And you have to, it is.
Such precepts are at the heart of Sports Talk Radio, a format that seems to value insult over insight.
This is a business of actors and actresses.
Showmanship is a good word. I think you have to find a person that likes being on the stage.
We don't have scripts, but we all come to work acting parts.
If you do everything perfect, then people can identify with you. If you mess up, then they can say, well, I can do that too.
One thing we've learned is
guys like gossip. They'll never admit it, but their ears to the wall.
You had to take your top off, right?
I had to get naked.
Totally?
Totally.
Totally nude out.
Just speak from that thing inside you, that thing inside all men, which makes a man a man.
The dumbstick?
Exactly.
How well does this format do?
when the hardline
masters of hardness
take control.
It does great.
Does it really?
Yes, it does. In a way, I'm sad to report. It really is guy stuff, and it becomes bottom feeding at a certain point, and it makes someone like me crabby.
I don't listen to your show. I don't care what the tickets say. I could care less about Sports Talk Radio, dude. I don't want to hear that stuff.
Now, granted, radio people, sometimes that's why they're in radio. They can be very shy. We have had a guy in Dallas, Mike Rhyner, part of the Hardline, and he's not a person you would want to invite to a cocktail party.
It's not Algonquinian conversation we're dealing with here.
They never allow room for others. There's never this inclusiveness. There's always more of an exclusive, judgmental, harsh, brittle approach.
Rulers of rigidity.
Gather round, gather round!
We are approaching midnight here in the Garden of Good and Evil.
Hello, and welcome to How Many, your podcast that counts. It's the only podcast on the internet.
Of every podcast in the world, this is the only one that will do the math for you.
That's right. And we will show our work. I am one of your hosts, Jesse Jackson. Joining us today is
Gary Grant.
Bob
Jr.
Today we're going to do a quick discussion that once again we are incredibly timely. All of us are big ticket fans. Mike Rhyner, the old gray wolf, has put up his spurs, hung up his mic, decided to petty theft full time. And
Screw it, I'm moving to Austin.
Yeah, that's it. I'm going to start with Bob and Junior. You guys
as the most tenured listeners, right?
Well,
J1.
Yeah. But, back in the day with the whole
higher profile.
We were closely associated to the point where we couldn't win awards or contests.
That was more Dave.
Run by the ticket.
That was more Dave. I compiled my share of Yeti coolers and fantasy flyaways and Madden cruisers over the years.
Now Bob has been so close with the Hardline in general. He's actually gone on double dates with some of their former co-hosts.
One time with Grego in the late 90s.
But he probably had the best relationship with Mike, right?
Is that a big four-way at the end of the night?
No, and neither of us are with the same person anymore. So, yeah.
Now, Bob, what would you say is your best memory of in-person, one-on-one contact with Mike?
Well, the other day, it came up on Facebook, that picture of him when me and you and the Emperor's Son and all those people he was like on the stage with Ticket Stock, and there was that picture of all of us.
He was like our Messiah.
Yeah, it was very Messiah-like. Yes, yeah, and that struck me as like that's, everybody always talks about him being, rough and harsh with, people and stuff, but he was never that way in my experience, like off air, interactions, I never had that encounter with him. He always was very nice, very friendly.
Well, I'll say the first time you met him in person, it was probably at a remote or something.
Yeah,
right?
it was at King of Free.
Maury Lowry?
Yeah,
King of
Maury
Everything
Lowry.
Free.
Yeah, they were having. This will tell you how long ago it was. It was Saturday, and the Bottle Rockets were doing a remote.
Having a great time.
But they had all the ticket. Grego and Rhines and Gordo. They were all of them were there, and they had a basketball goal set up in the parking lot. There were people just out there shooting hoops, and there was decent turnout, but it was probably like 50 people, something like that. So you could. It wasn't like you couldn't talk to them or anything. And I was like, hey, I've been sending some faxes in. Oh, you're Sideshow Bob. Oh, okay.
Now that part is made up.
No.
Because Sideshow Bob.
No, I told him, I'm like, I'm the guy that's sending the faxes, and I brought one.
You
so
said,
I could
I'm
see.
Sideshow Bob that sends in faxes.
Something
and
to
he
that
said,
effect.
oh, you're Sideshow Bob.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So there was acknowledgement of your presence.
Yes, he was able to parrot your name back to you.
I remember, what was the summer bash that was at Lake Louisville?
Yeah, with Poochie was there.
And you got on stage.
Oh, yeah.
Shirtless.
Yeah, and I jumped off, fell down, went out to run off the thing. Yeah, because that was that was the day I had Nemesis confrontation with Line 4 guy. That was during the Why Today Doesn't Suck I just found the picture with Big Dave and Poochie and the bikini girls.
Yes.
When was that?
I don't know.
That's probably 15.
Probably late 90s or
No, this would have been early 2000s, I think. But
Because that was the time where we whipped Craig, and he was nice enough that I can't remember whose wedding it was, but there was someone at Bangtech getting married. It was a big Carrollton church.
Yeah.
And it's all quiet, and they're playing music, and they stopped. And Chris was young, but he looked over and goes, on the ticket? And then Linda, threw daggers at both of us. So I had emailed that in, and Junior read it. And so just whatever that was, it was right after that, and I saw him. And he went, oh, that was a funny story. So whether he believed it, remembered it or not, he at least gave me,
I think the hosts are very good at lip servicing people when they say, oh, I'm so-and-so, I did this. Oh, yeah, I know you. Oh, I remember that very vividly.
How about you? Do you have any memories?
In the very, very early days of the ticket, the one thing that sticks out to me, and it wasn't even a one-on-one meeting with the Hardline, but when they used to do promos for the show back then, they would say things like, oh yeah, we're going to go over to Main Street Barbecue, and they have Papa-Shot or whatever, and you know what? Let's go there tonight, Ryan. Let's go tonight. So me, being a young kid, didn't realize that's lip service. I actually went to Main Street Barbecue in Euless. I'm sitting there. 7 o'clock comes by, 8 o'clock comes by. Man, maybe they're running late. Like they said they were going to be here tonight. An hour passes, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe they were just lip servicing the crowd. Maybe they weren't going to be here. That is the first remote that wasn't a remote memory that I have of the Hardline. But when I did meet them, they were the nicest, most cordial hosts that I believe I met the Musers first, and I probably had met Gordon before I actually met the Hardline. Yeah. But they were so nice. Mike was so gracious with his time. Like Bob said, he does sometimes come off on the air as being a little rough, being a little intimidating almost to maybe some of the other people that work there. But he was just the nicest guy to me. He seemed really, really good to the P1s. He knew and he appreciated that the P1s had backed them this whole time. So even to this day, if you go up to him and you're a long-standing P1, he'll call you by name. He'll say, hey, I appreciate everything you've done for us. He really seems to get it when it comes to working his crowd.
When the first time I remember meeting him in person was at one of Poochie's games. So football game, 7th or 8th grade football. It's on a Sunday afternoon at, St. Monica's.
Yeah, because his daughter was in one of the Catholic schools,
older
right?
than St. Pius, I think is where she went. And so he was there on the sideline, and I went up and go, hi, I'm Jesse. I listened to you guys. Oh, nice to meet you. He was cordial, and I mentioned my son. He goes, yeah, my daughter goes to St. Pius. And we talked this Catholic parent talk. It was nice enough. And I remember one of the jokes, is your daughter thinking about going Ursuline? Yes, if they allow a mother who smokes. Random.
Oh, yes.
And so I ran into him a couple other times, and we would always just talk about school. And then a few years ago, Sam and I went to see the Bob Dylan tribute that they don't do all the time. And it was at Scott's favorite place, at Tolbert's.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of fun. You know, Sam is a guy we're friends with. You guys still work with him, but a big Bob Dylan fan. And he was like, you know, this was a nice selection of old Dylan. And Mike came over and said, hey, did you enjoy the show? I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, I know you're a big fan. I was like, not really, but I'm not going to correct him. And so I was nice enough. So I think maybe just because I looked like the old Drew Carey, or Wayne Knight, Newman.
Yeah.
He remembers the fat guy with glasses, but he usually says, hi, Jesse, and I don't have to say.
He reaches out. I mean, like the petty theft show that he did a couple weeks ago, like the first one after he had retired, there was a big group of the Facebook P1s that we hang out with, and was hanging out with him, and he saw us at the table and came over and took pictures with everybody, and so it's. He's appreciative even when people come out to the petty theft shows,
Yeah.
So.
How about you, Gary? Any thoughts?
It's funny because I actually have only passively met most of those hosts, and mostly because of these guys.
Right, absolutely.
But I'm sort of a lurker. I'm like, I'm in the shadows.
He wouldn't even go up to DeMarcus Lawrence at the DMV the other day.
I guess if it's stuff like that, I don't get starstruck by the stuff like that. So I saw him. It was cool that I saw him, but I'm not going to go whip the dude's butt.
It's one of those situations where you got to think, how many other times am I going to be in the same room with DeMarcus Lawrence?
Junior is going to demand a full portfolio of selfies.
And you know why I have that mentality? Do you remember that one time we went and had lunch with...
Because you're a star f***.
That too. But we went...
White?
And Randy...
You have to beep the...
We went and had lunch at Bix, and Randy White was there, and I didn't get a picture or anything. I took your mentality. I didn't want to whip him. After that, all I thought the whole day was, when am I going to be in the same room with Randy? I should have just bit the bullet.
I guess I'm wondering what difference it makes. Like having a picture on the wall, or what difference does it make?
It would just feel like I accomplished something if one of the icons of my youth acknowledged my presence for even just a second.
So what I try to do when that happens, and it's done not somebody as important as Randy White, Brad, I think Leland, who played Buddy Guerin.
Yeah.
I know he was at a Chinese restaurant one night, and I went up to, it was around Christmas, and I went up and he was going to the back, and I said, I just want to stop you. You're with your daughter, you're having fun, but Friday Night Lights was amazing, and that it's one of the shows that my wife, son, and I always watch. He goes, I appreciate that. And he later came by and goes, hey, do you want a photo?
Oh, wow.
And I'm like,
Oh,
yeah.
so
He said, okay. So, and
so if you saw Springsteen eating at a restaurant, you would go up to him, you would interrupt him.
Although he's already met Springsteen.
Well, for 7 seconds. But yes. It would be hard for me not to go tell Bruce or someone that,
Would you be full Chris Farley? Like, just,
remember that time you sang Born in the USA? It was pretty cool.
That's probably like...
Remember when you were in the Beatles and you did that album, Abbey Road, and at the very end of the song, it goes, and in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. You remember that? Yes. Is that true?
You play your cards right, you could be on Set Listing Bruce as a guest.
So in 92, right before the NFC title game in 92, I met Troy Aikman at Vista Ridge Mall.
Oh, wow.
Middle of the day,
Put that
he
on
was
the
in the
bragging
mall.
montage.
I saw him, I'm like, holy crap, that's Troy Aikman. Obviously,
Was he by himself?
No, there's like 2 guys with him, but they weren't Cowboys players. Mm-hmm. But, obviously I'm a huge Cowboys fan, and mid-90s was an amazing time to be a Cowboys fan, or early 90s. And, there I was, I'm 20 years old, and I'm standing there talking to Troy Aikman in a sporting goods store. And I walked over, shook his hand, told him good luck, and, we love the Cowboys, and, thanks, whatever. Mm-hmm. And that was it.
And he wasn't mobbed? There wasn't a bunch of people?
No, but this is early 90s. It was also on a Wednesday at 10 a.m.
Oh, okay.
Or something like that. But years later, when I was working at Bank Tech, one of the guys that I used to work with, he had a friend that worked for Troy Aikman.
Right.
Now, it was Juan. You guys know Juan.
Yeah.
Juan's not a Cowboys fan. Juan is from Chicago. He's a Bears fan. But he knows that I'm a Cowboys fan. So Juan tells his buddy, he's like, hey, is there any chance you can get something signed? And he goes, yeah, I can get something signed. What do you got? And Juan goes, well, let me ask my buddy. So he told me he could get something signed by Troy Aikman. I got one of those panel footballs. I gave it to him. He gives it to his buddy who gets it signed, Gary, all the best, Troy Aikman. Right? I've got it in a case at home. But I value meeting him that day more than I value that football. It doesn't matter that I don't have a picture of it or I don't have an autograph from that day or whatever. I don't really care. The dude shook my hand and talked to me for 2 minutes. And that's enough. As long as I have that memory now, 20 years from now when I'm sitting in a nursing home with Alzheimer's, I'm probably going to wish I had the picture. But for now, it's plenty.
Bradley Whitford was at I went to a play in Dallas. They were doing the Up and Away, the old Superman play. I was like, it's a musical about Superman. How could this not be the greatest play
Now, did they
ever?
actually use the Fifth Dimension song?
No, they didn't.
The Age of Aquarius?
So it was at the... Bradley Whitford walked by, and I stopped him and I said, I just love The Good Guys.
Oh, yeah.
The new show
with
that
Tom
he's
Hanks'
filming
kid.
in Dallas, you know. He had a mustache, but it wasn't fluffy. You could tell that they did makeup for it to be the full 70s stash. I said, I just love the show. And I said, obviously West Wing, but this is just great. He goes, thank you. We are having a lot of fun filming it. And he walked away. And yes, I would have loved to, like, oh, look, it's Josh from West Wing. But it was enough that I got to tell him that I liked it and done. So, yeah.
So just getting back to the hardline and the ticket, now that Mike has passed on, what do you think they're going to do? There's lots of speculation that there is some drastic roster changes with a big announcement coming in the next couple of days. But what would you guys like to see as far as how the hardline continues, if they even should call it the hardline anymore? Or what they're doing right now, the kind of fill-in host every week or so, is that the way to go?
So I'll start. I do not listen to the hardline much anymore. I still tend to listen to the morning show, but in the afternoon I usually am listening to a podcast. It's just nothing against.
Quality control on how many, I assume.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, you got to scout the competition.
Just after a while, it's I get my fill of sports talk enough in the morning and the afternoon. I think they shouldn't call it the hardline. With neither Greg nor Mike there, it feels like it should be a different show. But I understand branding, so if they want to keep doing it, I'm okay. How about you, Bob?
I'm with you. I think they should change the name. I've thought all along they're just going to bring in Jake and have the three-man where it's like Danny and Corby and Jake.
Snake and Jake?
Snake and Jake. They'll make Danny a host, a third host, and then have Mino produce. That way, see, it's so rare that they have any kind of turnover at the station. And they've got all those guys.
So rare that he wrote a song about it.
Jake, in fact, yeah, I remember that. So he wants one of them to die, and it kind of did, almost. But Norm's the one that really is about to be on his deathbed. But
wow,
it seems like it. No, it seems
put in the
as
dark
helpless.
music.
Yeah, dark music. Because they want to retain a lot of that quote unquote JV or tier 3 talent, because there's no tier 2. As Junior will tell you. This is one of the few opportunities that they can really promote a lot of guys at one time. Like if we slide Danny over here, then this guy can get promoted to producer, this guy. So I think that's what a lot of the change is going to be at that level. I don't think there's going to be a lot of host turnover or changes. It doesn't make sense to me, I hear people say, well, they're going to move Bob to the hard line or whatever. I don't think you break up a show.
Yeah, it hurts to miss that one.
Yeah. You minimize the impact to the rest of the station. You keep the bad radio intact. You keep the musers intact.
I think they felt like they had to move Donovan because of just giving Norm some help.
Yeah.
And I do think that's made it a more solid show. I think together they're better.
If I was Cat, I would have gone to Norm and said, look, buddy, we appreciate everything you've done with us. You had a great career, but this is the time, if we're going to make changes and Mike's leaving, we need this to be all done. And we don't need to have you here in another year or two make another big change. That would make the most sense to me, would be them to just overhaul that whole...
Just tell him once a year he still gets to do his normathon.
Yeah, exactly. You do a normathon, you come on for the draft, all that stuff. Yeah,
absolutely. You could do
post game.
You
are an apologist.
I'm sorry. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Anytime you want, that's...
Yeah, but I think, that would open up some more opportunities also. But I've gone on too long. Basically, I don't...
It's me.
Yes, yeah, very much it's me. Me. The rumor is they may be moving Bad Radio to drive time. I could see that maybe happening, but I don't see a lot of other changes.
We talked about before we hit record, if Craig and George and Gordon said, I'm tired of getting up at dark 30, I want another shift, you've got to listen to them. But Morning Drive is the most prestigious show on any radio station.
Yeah.
So you don't see them doing it. And I just don't, to mix our sports metaphor, right, you don't change your lineup totally just because you've lost one key player. We're like, okay, well, now I'm going to make the first, I'm going to pick who was batting leadoff, I'm going to put him in the hole and move this and that.
That's definitely the perspective from an offensive line standpoint, right, Gary? Like, you don't, if your guard gets hurt, you don't move your other guard to move a tackle to guard.
Typically not, but that depends on who your backups are, and that may apply here as well.
Yeah.
But just for example, if your backup guard is really not very good, but your backup tackle is fantastic, and your starting tackle is a really good guard, then maybe you're betting off moving the tackle in and moving the backup tackle in as well. That's one way to look at it. From a ticket perspective, what if they wanted to let Gordon be a host on a show as opposed to being the Yuck Monkey in the morning? So I'm not suggesting that I think that that's what they're going to do, because I think the three of them work really well together, so I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that would be one way that you could approach it, is to say, well, yeah, we could move Jacob or somebody like that, but they're not as good as Gordo. So do we want to weaken the Musers by moving a Gordo, or do we want to leave the Musers intact and then take our chances by promoting Jake or, whatever? I think Bob has a really good point, because that would be a good time to go to Norm and say, it might be time to back off this a little bit. We're going to just go with Soroy and Donovan in the afternoon show. And then that opens up another spot where now you've got Jake moving in with the hardline or whatever they're going to be called. And you could do something else with the afternoon show because you need a new Yuck Monkey producer or whatever. So,
yeah.
I mean, there are a ton of different ways that you can look at it.
Yeah.
As much and Norm was the first, when I moved to Dallas, I had listened to talk radio, but I had never listened to really sports talk radio. And so I happened to stumble on KLIF, when I was looking for a talk station, and, Norm and Dan Bennett, and, that personality they had was fun, and sports is so prevalent in the water here in Dallas that it is. But I do think that would be a good thing to tell Norm, and it's easy for me to say, right? But it's like, hey, Norm, there's nothing you can accomplish you haven't already accomplished.
Yeah.
And
he's just
you're
like
a progress stopper.
He's the guy that has to do what he does, like the coach that has to coach, that can't stop. It's just, that's in his blood. He wants to do it all the time. Now, which guy, other than Norm, who do you think will be the next leave the station? I have an HSO. I think I know who it's going to be.
I think it's going to be George.
I think Craig is most likely.
Why are you guys breaking up the Musers?
Yeah, I don't want them to break up.
No, but they both have made hints.
Yeah.
You almost wonder if they would, at the same time, they would.
George is kind of in the same situation as Mike was, where he's got a side band going in addition to working full-time on the show. He has a lot
empty nest.
He's a really family-oriented guy. He seems like he has a lot of other things he wants to do outside of the show. He was at a movie recently. He would be my bet. I think Craig, even though he just got married, he kind of has that bachelor mindset for a really long time, to where he doesn't have all of those overbearing family obligations that would maybe make other people want to retire early and spend time with their family.
But he likes to travel and stuff so much, and
he could still do that.
He's probably, other than Rhyner, the richest guy at the station, because he's had no overhead all these years, no kids. So he's probably got a massive stockpile of disposable.
$8,000, $9,000, $10,000 bikes. Takes trips to go ride his bike.
He does have expensive
an
vices.
ex-wife. I don't know how
much that's true.
That's half.
Yeah.
Well, not in Texas.
That failed Shark Tank jeans business probably cut out a chunk of his wealth.
Possibly so. But I think you're right. It's going to be one of those two, I think. You guys have an idea of who you think?
I think the person that deserves more is Gordon, but I think he's done it. I mean, he did the Gordon Key show. He's
self-limiting.
Yeah,
he's like, honestly, I think if he's going to do anything else, he's really, in real life, apparently he's gotten pretty tight with Dax Shepard and Kristen Bell and hangs out with them like in real life and stuff.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets some kind of either side gig or some type of deal, writing, producing.
Because Dax Shepard said you should be doing a podcast, and he wasn't kidding. You know, when he was on there, you know, we all know how lucrative podcasting is because you know we're rolling in it.
Hey, we will extend the forum if Gordon ever wants to wet his beak on a podcast.
But
he's more than welcome.
he's always said, and George and Craig kind of confirm that he's not very self-driven. Like he's really good at what he does, but the motivation and the structure and the drive isn't always there.
Well, like I know the morning news would love him to keep doing columns.
Yeah, he was great at that. He was great at that.
Just kind of. Now I'll tell you who's sorry, and I know this will hurt you, but man, have you watched Grego's tweets lately?
Yeah,
he has gotten all crazy. Just about,
and he's back
loving on Trump and hating all
Democrats. Not even the political stuff, but it's just he's even had like some real gibberish come out where somebody's like, "Hey, is he okay?" And he's mentioned he's been in and out of the hospital, so you wonder, you know, what maybe is going on there.
But hey, now that Mike is gone, does this open the door for Grego to make a triumphant return?
What if that's the big announcement?
Maybe that's the big announcement.
That would be massive shake off.
It shocks you. It shocks you.
That's when you blow the doors off. The way Mike did it was perfect. I mean, to not make a big announcement, just to film it, not tell anything in advance.
He didn't have a victory lap. And just,
and then he's done several afterwards. He's done podcasts.
Yeah, he did the Ben and Skin podcast.
Yeah, that was good. That was a really good discussion.
And there was some speculation for a little while that Ben and Skin would be making a return to fill in some of the gaps that have been left.
They made their announcement already. So
they're going to regular.
There you go.
Yeah. So that's good. I wish him the best, and I'm sure the station will be fine no matter what ESPN and 105.3 The Fan think. You know that I think the ticket will stay.
And we're a couple of weeks out from ticket stock. I'm sure Mike will make an appearance.
Like with the Time Wasters?
With the Time Wasters, he'll probably be one of those side panels that they're going to have during the weekend. So it's not like he's gone forever. You know, we don't have to put the tombstone up.
And they already said they were going to have him on for baseball once a week.
Yeah,
during
I think
baseball
that's good.
season.
I am shocked, and I'm kind of out there. I would have thought during the anniversary year that somehow or another Greg would have done some kind of official.
Mike said he would have let him come to Ticket Stock last year.
Yeah.
He extended the invitation.
Well, I think
at this time, I'd like to present the invitation.
It was not a direct, though.
Yeah, and Grego acted like he didn't know about it,
Yeah.
which, of course, people tweeted him about it ahead of time. Yeah, he knew.
I think that what they say publicly and what they can agree to, probably contractually behind the scenes, are two different things. It's one thing for them to say, well, I mean, we'd have him out if he wanted to come out. And he might say, well, you know, if they invited me, I'd come out. That doesn't mean that they're going to agree to all the rules on, you know, what forums he's going to be available in and who's going to be with him. And do we want to even sit next to each other, or is it just going to deteriorate? At the end of the day, I think that kind of stuff is a lot better left undone. Because we can sit here and speculate about how cool it would be, but there is a great potential for it to be a disaster.
Which is what Junior would be pulling for.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to see fisticuffs up on the stage.
All right! Stay hard, Mike Rhyner, the Grey Wolf. You are one of the best.
Yes.
So.
And I'm sure Bob is just itching to share the private message he received from Mike.
Well, I did say we both actually sent him an acknowledgement after we heard about the...
It wasn't enough that Bob went onto his personal page and said, thank you for your service. He actually sent him a private message in the hopes that Mike would give him the kudos that he so craves.
I wasn't expecting any response. I just wanted to thank him for everything. And
while you're pulling that up, I want to let you know I reached out to Mike saying, hey, now that you're not as busy, please come on Set Less and Bruce, talk about Tom Petty, talk about Steely Dan, any of your...
Did you tell him you know me and Junior?
Did he respond?
Crickets.
Oh.
Same thing when I went to Grego and I said, hey, do you want to talk to ZZ Top? I'm a close personal friend of Sideshow Bob. Crickets.
You could tell him that you know Dusty Hill's cousin's son because Gary is related to Dusty Hill.
All right, so what is the personal message?
I just said thanks so much. All right, this is going to sound like bragging, but I've got the screenshot here. Among the ranks of the Dirty P1, I found none more consistently amusing and entertaining than you.
Listen to him.
If you want to say it, say it.
All right.
Here, do you want me to read it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll let you read it because that'll prove that it's not.
Junior read it.
You want me to
You
read
see where
it?
the sideshow where it says,
Oh, Sideshow, thank you so much. And know this. Among the ranks of the Dirty P1s...
Now, you could do it in Ryan's voice if you wanted to.
Now more production value.
Oh, yes, Sideshow. Oh, yes. Oh, Sideshow. Thank you so much. And know this. Among the ranks of the Dirty P1, I have found none more consistently amusing/entertaining than you. Love you, man.
I love you, Jane.
I love you.
Especially that C-Suck Junior.
Wow. So Bob printed out.
And then he says, Bob goes, that means more than you know, Rhines.
Hon.
And he replies, I mean every syllable of it, brother. So very nice. Now I would.
Now, what was your message that you got back, Junior? Let's have a dramatic reading. Matter of fact, I'll do fake
Mine
Rhymes
is
and
just
read it.
a one-sentence reply. I did not get a full paragraph, but if you want to read his sentence.
You are a perennial Mexican junior. You are greatness.
I think he meant to
short and
say.
sweet.
I think he meant to say you're a perennial Mexican junior, but it just goes. You're a perennial. You're always a
Like I'm
Mexican
always
junior.
Of all the Mexican juniors I know, you are the most
Mexican junior.
Like
Yes.
that, of all the Charlie Browns, you're the
Yes.
most Charlie Brownish.
Short and sweet. Mike knew that I'm a get-to-the-point kind of guy. He kept
to the
it
money
short.
shot.
Yeah,
Get to the money
he
shot.
money shotted me. Thank you.
60 more minutes of the hard line. 60 more minutes of the hard line. 60 more minutes of the hard line. 60 more minutes of the hard line.
We've talked about our thoughts, but Scott, you've been mysteriously quiet.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything from you this whole episode. It's almost like you're not even here.
Just take it in, Just take it in sometimes.
When you heard about Mike leaving, what were your thoughts?
I was saddened. I'll be honest. I was deeply saddened, but I also was happy for him because I really felt like, man, he's doing what he wants to do.
Yeah.
He wants to go do something else. He really does. And since I've talked to him since he did this, I know two other friends of mine that have said, "Oh, I'm retiring this year. I'm retiring this year." And I've asked them, "Is it because of the Rhyner thing, or is that?" And they said, "No, it's been in the works."
What age are we talking about here?
My age, 57, 58.
Wow, it's early retirement.
Now, how long you've been teaching for? What, 20 years?
No, this is my 18th year.
Are you have a target date in mind for yourself?
3 years from now.
A couple of years ago, I was at my 40th, or I can't do the math, but it was a high school reunion. I went back to Lake Charles, and it was a good time. We had not had a reunion we didn't have a 10-year, 20-year, 30-year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had not had them.
So this is the first time you've seen
so like
all of
77 to, I guess, 2017. So what is that, 50?
No, that's 40.
Okay.
years.
Because, I mean, you're 60, so
yeah, that makes sense.
18, yeah.
And I was amazed and a little jealous about the amount of people that I've already retired, or I'm planning to retire, because a lot of people in Lake Charles, right out of high school, got a job at the petrochemical plant, worked there for 30 years, 40 years, and now they're retired. And I'm like, man, I can't even see retirement.
But they lived in Lake Charles all those years.
That's
you
a
did
good
not.
point.
So.
That's a good point.
That's interesting. I graduated in '94. I've never gone to any high school reunions at all. Are those must attend?
Do the Tongans not invite you?
No.
Where did you go last?
My invitation.
He was Trinity.
You went to Trinity?
Yes.
I'll be damned.
My invitation got lost in the mail, obviously, and did not get in Bosco Lake to my own reunion. But I wouldn't turn it down if I were to get some kind of invite. I'm sure it's all done through Facebook and social media these days.
Yeah.
Nobody sends snail mail anymore.
And I think Facebook has kind of diminished the reunions because people stay in contact. But the only one I went to was my 30.
Yeah, I went because when I had the whole
cancer.
Well, why did you do air quotes?
I always do that.
It wasn't fake cancer.
Fake cancer.
Yeah. A lot of people from high school via Facebook were like, "Hey, are you doing okay? How's it going?" They were really supportive.
Because it was around that same time.
Yeah. And so I went, and it was really good to see a lot of people, and actually a couple of our favorite teachers.
Still alive?
I know.
Wow.
That's how young they were, right?
Yeah, there's a couple of mine that I talk with on a regular basis.
So that was really good to see them. And Jeff Cormier was a huge Eagles fan, and he loved music. And so I talked to him, and he wouldn't, but I said, you should join me on Set Listing, Bruce. You know, I do a music podcast. I would love to have you talk about that. And he was like, no. But it was good. Back to Mike, right? I agree with you. Sorry for the side thing, pulling the lid back. This has been a couple weeks now, and we're recording, and Junior's going to, the magic of editing, put this in there. You know, I listened to the Ticket Stock Roundtable. He seems really happy with what he's doing.
Yeah.
For now, I mean, it's fresh right now.
Yeah.
I think people that retire, my theory is the first, I'd say, 6 months are probably exactly what they thought it would be. Not having to worry about doing anything, getting up, preparing for work.
Right.
All of that stuff is bliss. But once you get past that 6 month threshold, you start getting bored. And he's only in his second month?
Yeah, and I think he may have something in the works down the road.
He has plans, though. I mean, he's not.
Whoa, this is pulling back the curtain.
No, not really. No, but he doesn't plan to just sit in his house and watch daytime TV. I mean, I think his music is just going to grow. He wants to do more of
more
that.
Petty theft.
He wants to do more of that, and I just think he wants to do things that involve that. You know, go see more acts. You know, that kind of thing. You know, I think he wants to get Buick 60. Is it Buick 66?
Buick 6?
Buick 6, yeah, Buick 6. Buick 6, you know, and do more with that. Because they've only had a handful of
That's his Bob Dylan cover band.
Yeah.
And then doesn't he have a Yardbirds cover band too or something like that?
And what was the other one he had? It was, I don't think it was Yardbirds, but there was a third one. God, I can't remember.
Who does Turn, Turn, Turn?
Oh, Birds.
That's the Birds.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But yeah, I just think that's what he wants to do. It's kind of like I've done radio to death. And he's achieved everything he wanted to do in radio. Now it's a case of, I don't have to do it anymore. Why can't I do something that's fun?
Part of it probably also, he was aware that there was a backlog of people that never any openings in the host, that he probably was conscientious of that also, like, hey, you know, I can...
May have been.
Yeah. I mean, that certainly wasn't the main reason, but I bet he factored that into his thought process, you know.
Just to tell you, though, Junior, when I got laid off in January... and
What? You got laid off?
Yeah, I
They
know.
blow the lid off.
Luckily got a job and started February 10th, so I was only off that 4 or 5 weeks.
Now, you broke my record.
I was not bored whatsoever. And I think if there was enough income, like I'm not talking massive, stupid money, but there was money where you could pay your bills, then every couple of months go on a mini trip or something.
Yeah.
I don't think I would be bad at all, because this sounds horrible, there's so many TV shows that I haven't got a chance to see. There's movies I haven't got to see. We went to Memphis for like 5 days, and Lynn and I had a blast just exploring the Stax Museum and the Rock and Soul Museum and everything. Now, if you're struggling money-wise, then I think you're sitting there.
There's a lot of stress involved.
Stress about that, yes.
Stuff. But for your example, though, you have, 3-4 podcasts going at once.
Yeah.
You're occupying yourself with editing them. They're almost not necessarily like a second job, but they occupy a lot of your time.
There is a purpose, and I think Linda retired, last year, and she's now on disability, and she volunteers, with the church, has a set program of her and her friend Susan, work out almost 4 or 5 days a week. So she has that pattern. So I do think even retiring, you're going to have, and it sounds like Mike talks about, he has things he does fairly often.
I mean, he seems to be happy.
Yeah.
So
it's been a few weeks now. What do we think of the new lineup? I really want to hear what you think, Bob.
I think it's great. I don't miss a minute of it. No, at first on Twitter, I posted the bad decision coach meme, because not that I have anything against Bob. I like Bob. I just thought it seemed odd to break up a whole show in addition to And I thought, and
you're changing 2 shows as opposed to changing.
Yeah, and somebody up at the ticket, who I will remain nameless for confidentiality, not on air, DM'd me when he saw that, and he explained what the thought process was, and it was a combination of things between the drive time is very significant, and they thought, Bob has a little more experience than somebody like Jake, who, why did they not move Jake there instead of Bob? And they wanted the established host, Ben and Skin are just starting, not that they're really counter-programming for Ben and Skin, but they're just taking everything into consideration. But I still think it would have made sense, and I talked to the same guy at Ticket Stock that had DM'd me, because Junior was there, and I was like, well, wouldn't it have made more sense just to flip-flop and move Bad Radio intact to drive time than just Bob alone? He's like, well, then you've got drive time salary versus afternoon salary. Then you're having to raise the level of the whole show, and as opposed to one guy. I mean, in retrospect, it makes a lot of sense.
Would you cut Corby's salary?
Right, yeah, exactly. So it made sense in retrospect. At just the time, I kind of had that knee jerk.
One thing you didn't hear, Scott, when we were here, Gary's thought was that they should have told Norm that while we're doing this big shakeup, why don't you go ahead and
just do it all at once?
I absolutely agree with that.
And as he said, you can still do the draft. We'll still do the Normathon.
Put him in like a Chris Berman role, where he's still on ESPN periodically. He's just not a day in, day out.
And so, and then totally redo the lineup. And because I don't know how much longer Norm plans on doing this.
I think he wants to stay on
till he dies.
Yeah.
He wants to die on the air.
And I'm perfectly fine with that. I mean,
sure.
There's times where, Norm's a little goofy, and I just kind of go, okay. But you know what? I mean, I remember when they brought him. I listened to him on his old station.
Me too.
I remember when they went in there into the studio, and Mike and what's his name?
The Hammer.
The Hammer. The Hammer. I remember when they went and got him and brought him over, and I was just going, wow. And I thought, that's a huge credibility move of bringing this guy who's really established in this area with that over to the station.
And one of the things I remember is Grego saying, we're big into over and unders and the ticket. And so do you want to guess the over and unders if you're going to say KLAF instead of KPCK? And they laughed about it. And then we were trying to figure out for one of those annual sales conventions or kickoff conventions, we were looking for a speaker, and I ended up talking to the former Mrs. Hitkes, Vicky Hitkes.
Oh, yeah. Because she was like a speaker, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was a speaker. And they were still married at the time, and she said that the station had been so warm and welcoming to him. They truly treated him as a elder statesman of talk radio, despite you would think the two styles wouldn't match.
Well, because he hated the ticket before he came on board, and for like the first 6 months he was there. Like he would get into it with Gordo, and
and so they found
so all the more reason why they wouldn't give him such an unceremonious exit by saying, well, since Mike's leaving, why don't you go ahead and pack up your stuff too and put it in a box?
Well, no, I mean there was a way to do it where it's like
I was telling you guys before we hit record, with the new gig I have less of a commute, so I tend to listen a little more in the afternoon, and I definitely check the podcast out more. I think Danny and Bob and Corby have a good mix. I think they have a nice chemistry. He seems to be doing well. Jake seems to be fitting in well with Dan. And so...
and he was already kind of part of that show beforehand anyway.
Yeah, he was a producer, but I mean, he was on mic quite a bit. He's not one of those Fernando off-mic producers.
Yeah, right. You could tell, at least from my perspective at Ticket Stock, how much the other hosts miss Mike. Not that it's bad, just it is sad not to see you every day. It is sad not to hear you every day.
I literally, when he was doing his bit, it's like your grandfather died.
Yeah, it's a sense of mourning.
It's a sense of mourning. And call us what you want, I've never heard a Post Malone song in my life. Ever.
Yeah, me neither.
And he was singing this song up there. I had no idea what he was singing. I didn't know what it was. And there was just, I think, 2 or 3 lyrics that he sang that got me a little choked up. The whole thing of, I'm going to be all right.
Yeah.
And I just was, wow, he's gone.
Yeah.
You probably think that you are better now. You only say that because I'm not around. You know I never meant to let you down. Want to give you anything, want to give you everything.
Now, you were mentioning, Scott, that he brought a lot of non-sports related things to the show, like music topics and Dallas history.
Yeah, a lot of Dallas history. Yeah,
that are going to have a huge void. Replacing him with Bob from a sports perspective, it's not a really harsh change. But Bob doesn't bring the kind of history knowledge and music knowledge that Mike had. It almost feels like the segments are a little bit limited now, where it's got to be something related to sports or Wisconsin in order for Sturm to be able to contribute.
Jeffrey Dahmer.
One of the things that I tuned in for, I'm in the crosswalk every day from 3 o'clock to like 3:20. As soon as it's done, I'm back in the room and I turn on Ticket because I want to hear what's on Mike's mind. Yeah. Because that was like one of my favorite segments because
you never knew what he would talk about.
I didn't know what he was going to talk about.
Exactly.
And even when it was baseball, which I don't enjoy, it was interesting because he'd come up with some little nuance, the story about some strange player, that came out of nowhere, and it would just tell these stories, and it's just like this is the greatest part of the day for me.
Well, and I think this is true in radio, and I think it's true in podcasting. If you're a good storyteller and you're passionate about your subject, you can get your audience engaged and want to know more about that, even though I could give a care about this, but because he is a good storyteller and it shared that, I agree. Yeah.
But I love listening to the music segments. I mean, I would just sit there and be blown away at how much Corby doesn't know.
Like whenever they talk about Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or something like that.
It has been interesting to see the shift in responsibilities on the Hardline now, where Corby was doing community quick hits. He was doing a lot of the segments that now Danny has taken over, like concert calendar. He's taken that over for Mike, and now they have Line 4 guy doing Reconsider Lounge, which I'm sure is another thorn in the side of our Bob Bland, because he already hated Line 4 guy.
Line 4 guy. No.
You remember a couple years ago, Summer Bash 2002, got on there, Line 4 guy, had a big mano-a-mano. Here to tell you today, Line 4 guy is genius. I have a reversal on Line 4 guy.
Line 4 guy has won you over.
Yes, he has.
Any final thoughts, guys?
I mean, they have not lost me as a listener. It will be an adjustment period. From 12 to 12:30 is usually around the time I take lunch and I'm driving. So I do catch snippets of Dan and Jake and their show. And it does sound like, even though they had worked before, their chemistry is not 100% yet. It does sound a little
they're trying to incorporate Julie more than before, I think. So
it sounds like the coordination is not quite there yet.
It sounds to me like it's a holiday show. It's like, okay, somebody's
dry dock.
So fill in.
It's a dry dock show. Somebody's in dry dock. And that's the way the Hardline sounds to me still. It still has this, it's a dry dock show.
And I think the thing with Dan and Jake is that Bob was steering the boat when he was there, and Dan was not usually the one steering. Dan's now kind of the head guy. He's used to being the smart aleck guy that,
Yeah.
When I think a few years back, Dan rubbed me the wrong way. I did not like Dan.
Was it his voice?
No, it was just it was his walking out. It was his attitude about it. Because
shut up! What are you walking out? Yeah, we're having fun here, no? A shot? Yes. I don't want audio.
Because he does have a couple of things that he does that chirps me. He interrupts people when they're talking, which to me is one of those.
What do you say?
I mean, he will just flat out interrupt somebody, and
he does seem like he has a short fuse. He will rage like when Gribble was still their producer. There's lots of epic audio of him just raging.
I don't want audio.
I don't want audio.
And I hate that. I hate that.
I'm just feeding down information.
Talk on the air, Turley. Quit telling me minutia in my ear.
I'm just feeding down information that.
I say, well, what does Turley know? No, it was Teresa. Who cares?
On the TV Tim show, maybe that's how it works, or maybe on Big Dick show. I'm sorry, Mike.
I'm just feeding down information that's told to management.
Mike, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for Dan, too.
Only on the air talent, you listen to me. I don't like that whole bullying kind of thing. But I have come to really like Dan over the last few years. I have sat there and tried to look at this through Dan's perspective, and it's like going, now does Dan feel wrong?
I was going to say, I wonder if he feels a little slighted that they were planning on moving somebody up, and they chose Sturm instead of him. Now, some of it could be related just to tenure. Like, Sturm has been there longer. He was hosting the nighttime show before they ever put Bad Radio together.
Yes.
So maybe it was more of a he's kind of due for this kind of deal. But Dan brought a lot of the things that I think Mike brought.
Right.
A lot of the storytelling, a lot of things that are not sports related that he may have been able to fill in a little bit better than maybe Sturm could, because I didn't really see Mike as a hardcore sports guy, and that's how I see Sturm really. I see him as a very hardcore sports. He always wants to steer everything back to something sports related, and Mike wasn't that.
With a 10-minute question.
Yes. Which, by the way, was a little funny. I don't know if Bob wants to chime in on this or not. But during some of the panels, when Corby and Sturm were answering questions,
Screensaver Corby,
and Sturm would go into one of those long-winded answers, you could see Corby kind of going into screensaver mode and just he's just expressionless, waiting for the opportunity to chime in. I wonder if in the studio now there is some of that going on, where he's just kind of. You have to kind of wake him back up to get him to chime in.
We weren't allowed to bring phones in to record or anything, but I guess we can kind of recount things that were said in those roundtables. But I remember there was one of the roundtables or side room panels, and Kat was taking questions, and somebody asked him, "Did you consider asking Dan instead of Bob?" And he said no. Like, he just flat out said no. Like,
and then there were several times, and I did this as well, where we asked Kat, what was plan B? What if Sturm had said no, he wasn't interested in moving? What was your plan?
Because he said, I had a plan B and a plan C, but he wouldn't elaborate.
But he would not elaborate on what they were.
I wonder if Corby said that they had, 2 or 3 different plans set up,
So I am curious to see what those plans. I assume one of the plans would be having Jake just get promoted and move into Mike's spot, or like you said, maybe Dan was going to be in line at some point. Maybe
Donovan,
maybe moving Donnie or Soroy.
Do you think there's any chance they would have brought someone from outside?
I think they would have had to have exhausted about 4 different plans.
Yeah, there was too many guys at the station that they could have put in that.
And although in the panel I did ask them if Plan B was possibly bringing Papa Joe Chevalier
that got a big laugh. That did get a big
replace
laugh.
Mike.
That move would have brought the ire of many a listener.
Yes.
If they had said, we're going to introduce somebody from some other station from Detroit.
Denver,
we're going to bring him in here and we're going to plug him in.
If it had been a Dallas DJ, like maybe they brought Hawkeye in or something.
Right.
Or Wolonsky.
Somebody like that, I could
Ducey.
possibly see not having a lot of blowback. But if they brought some out-of-town guy to replace Mike, I think that would have been pretty rough.
It would have had to be somebody that had some previous involvement with the ticket, like Gen X Davey or something like that.
Something that there's a connection to at least the people.
That was what I was rooting for. Gen X Davey being paired with Corby and Danny.
You just wanted another rant.
Basically a rant orphanage full-time show. I would love
in
that.
the evenings.
You just want Irving Cares back on the air.
Make love, Juby.
What? Make
love to Irving Cares.
What? What? That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Hey, Irving, you still there, buddy?
Yeah.
What are you up to today?
Collecting cans.
You are?
Frank Byron.
You,
come out and see Gordon and make love, Subi.
What are you talking about, Irving? Why are you telling people to do that to you?
Show how much you love Irving.
All right,
so just a quick thumbs up, yay or nay on the changes. Jesse?
Yay.
Bob?
Sure, yay.
Not a very enthusiastic yay.
I mean, we're still evaluating.
I'm still because I haven't had a chance to evaluate fully. I get to hear the musers up until 8:20, and then I can't turn the radio back on until 3:20.
I think you need to come back a year from now and make that ruling. Give them time to.
All right, so mark it on the calendar.
Give me a summer
A year
to
from
listen
now,
also.
we need to have a recap of the previous year, and we'll go episode by episode. And give it
All right, Scott, how can we reach you on Twitter?
What is it? Scott_Matula.
I memorized it at this point.
Yes.
Metzgen _Jr. and howmanypodcasts@gmail.com, YouTube channel, all that.
Gary is at @travel_cowboy on Twitter.
At Jesse Jackson DFW.
And at Lukewarm Tallboy, no underscore.
There you go.
Just straight up.
All right. Thank you, listeners.
Thank
we'll
you.
talk to you soon.
Well, that is a wrap.
Oh, man, for you for the year.
Thanks very much for your time and attention this afternoon. Thanks to Ty, David, Beckham. You guys on the phones for allowing us to invade your personal space. Do stay tuned. Because on the way, we got a little Stars hockey coming up here. So stand by for that on top of everything else that's gone on over there today. We have the minor detail of a game tonight, which you will hear right here on the ticket coming right up. Check that out. Now, the boys will be back in here tomorrow. I am headed off into the wild blue yonder.
We'll see you in 2024.
So, till we meet again, you guys stay hard, keep jamming, and we'll see you.
It's been